Hello there, this is another brief update on the terrain tiles. The board is now laid out with all of the tiles in position. They're not yet finished. I've given them their basic green coat of flock, and then I've gone over that with additional tones to try and vary things a little bit. And then sealed them with PVA. So they're now thoroughly sealed, but the tones that you see on at the moment, they're all fairly light grade, or rather fine flock. What I want to do is to put some more flock on. This time I'll be using a slightly coarse grade of flock to give it a bit more of a three-dimensional appearance, but I'm very pleased with how things have turned out so far. The boards are, or the tiles rather, are very well sealed. The flock doesn't now scrape off them. It's been a bit of a learning curve really, but again, thanks to Mel, the terrain tutor, for his videos, which have been extremely useful. What I found I needed to do was, having painted the boards, and dry brushed them, and then went over them in a diluted PVA before putting the first green flock on, and I allowed that plenty of time to dry. Once it was dry, I then sealed it using a PVA diluted mix and a sprayer bottle, basically, to give a mist of PVA over it to seal them. And then when I was satisfied that they were sealed properly, I then went over again and put on the lighter tones that you see here, and some of the darker markings to give a bit more atmosphere and hopefully authenticity. And then I sealed those yet again with another spray of PVA. I gave them a damn good soaking actually, and it's paid off because it's given them a really nice hard and durable finish. I've stuck a few of my trees on just to give you a bit of an idea of what it's going to look like when we're actually using it in action. So the next thing I have to do is tone these with the rough grade or coarse grade of flock. What I'm going to do with that, I think, is I'm going to actually paint the flock on using a soft brush to create paint PVA on first of all using a soft brush to create the patches of flock. Drop the flock on those, and then when I'm satisfied that they're dry, give them a squirt of PVA again to completely seal them, and hopefully render them fairly durable. I'm not going to be able to put large clumps of foliage on. I think I mentioned earlier that because if I do that, they're only going to rub off when stored under the board. Also, some of the tiles look a bit uneven at the moment. That's because I've actually put an old wargaming cloth, excuse me, an old wargaming cloth which I've had since the 70s under the board, just to help keep everything in position. But I don't think that's necessary now. So what I'll probably do is when all the boards are actually finished, the tiles are finished, I'll take that green cloth out and lay them on the MDF surface. So that's everything for the moment from this very short update, and I'll be in touch when I've done the final stages of flocking. But I'm so far quite satisfied with how things are working out. Cheers for now, thanks for watching, bye. Okay, we're back again now. I've finished putting on the rough flock, and the tiles are, to all intents and purposes, now complete. Slight change of plan with regard to putting on the coarse flock. What I decided to do was actually scatter the flock on whilst the boards were dry, and then give them a thorough soaking in PVA spray, and that seems to have worked quite well because the coarse grade flock has actually settled down very well, and it's quite durable. You get little bits that will come off, but it's no big deal. On this area in particular, I did try blobbing on PVA with a brush and then putting the tufts on top, because I wanted those to be a bit deeper than the general tufts, and that worked out okay. But for the majority of the board, I simply put the flock, coarse flock, onto the tiles, and then gave them a good soaking in PVA, and left it to dry. I also chucked on some other fine grade flock to improve the appearance in various areas. So that is the first phase of the board completed. I say the first phase because I've got a few more tiles which I need to do. I'm undecided though whether I actually need any more tiles for this board or not, or whether I should just stick with the ones I've got. Got a few raised areas. There's a hill there, as you can see. There's another hill in that centre part, and that's it essentially. Got a couple of depressions and some rough areas of ground where it's just earth. I'm concerned I might have gone a bit over the top with some of the earth patches actually. I've got 3 more boards of this grey polystyrene or styrofoam which I'm just doing, and I'm going to do those as simply plain green boards so that I've not got too much exposed soil showing, and I'm hoping that'll balance things up a bit. In an earlier video I showed that I'd got some pieces marked with the word end because they were going to fit on the end of the board. Well, I've done those as well. That's one of them. They're supposed to be 18 inches by a foot, but they're not quite 18. Sorry, they're not quite a foot wide, so I can't put them in the middle because they'll tend to throw things out a bit. But by putting them on the end of the board, they work quite well. So that's 2 of them, and this here is the third one. This gives you a better idea of how I've put the flock on, I think. Just a matter of scattering it on and then spraying on PVA, and it's stuck on quite well. I'm sure that some of it's going to come off at some point. I anticipate that it will rub off with storage and use, but that's no big deal. As far as I can see, there's no reason why I can't simply just spray PVA on again to reseal it. That's certainly what I've had to do with some of my trees where I've lost the foliage over time, so I don't see that as a big deal. I mentioned in the previous video about, or earlier in this video, because I've done them in 2 sections obviously, about the tiles being a bit sort of uneven. I did try using the tiles on the board without any kind of cloth underneath, and that was a bit problematic. The tiles moved very easily, they slid around because they don't weigh very much, and they are completely smooth polystyrene, styrofoam on the back, so they do slide around a bit. I found that by putting the green cloth back on, which you see here, it actually holds them in position a little bit better. So I reckon I'll probably stay with that. There are a few irregularities or uneven areas, but once I've got all the scenic bits on, such as fields and trees and whatnot, I think that's not really going to be a problem. It's not going to be obvious. So for this first phase, I'm really pleased. It's now a matter of getting a game sorted out, and as soon as I've done that, I'll take some pictures. I might actually just set my own troops up on the board so that you can see what they look like, if that's of some interest, and I'll post that as a video. My problem is that I'm a really slow painter. I think I mentioned this before, and I've spent a lot of time on this particular job of doing these tiles, and as a result my paintings suffered a little bit, and I've still got lots of incomplete projects. One thing I did add since the last video is this rather nice picture, which was bought a while back. Actually, it was bought for my 60th birthday by a late friend of my mother-in-law, and it's a canvas that I'd never got round to framing. And now that I'm approaching my 65th birthday, I thought I really ought to show some respect and get the thing done. So I had it framed at a local framing shop a few weeks back, and it looks pretty good actually. I mean, I know some people consider that Lady Butler's work's a bit cheesy, but it was a nice gesture of him to buy that, and so I had that framed, and I think it fits in quite well with the other artwork that I've got so far. Anyway, I'm waffling now. So far as the terrain is concerned, that's about it. I will set up the board properly with some figures and give you a look at that so you can see what it looks like in use. But happily, when almost reached the end, once I've done these three remaining pieces of the terrain tiles themselves. As for the other terrain tiles I've got, they're actually thicker than these. I'm not sure what to do with those. I don't know whether to do a desert scenery or something like that, but that can wait for now because I've no plans to do any desert warfare in the immediate future. So I'm just going to break off when I finish when I've completed the last three boards. I'll break off the terrain side of things and get stuck into some painting. So I hope all your projects are going well. I hope this hasn't been too boring and is of some interest to you. And thanks very much for watching. Cheers for now.